At the very edge of the sea, where the water melts into the sky, stood an old lighthouse. It was tall, made of stone, its walls darkened by salt. Each night its light pierced through the fog, calmly, confidently, without haste. And there lived a man, the keeper, a lonely man whom everyone had long forgotten. The island was small, a few rocks, a few crooked pines, and the wind that never fell silent. By day he repaired the mechanisms, polished the lenses, listened to the cries of seagulls, and at night he stared into the darkness. The sea was his only companion. Years passed. Ships came rarely, people even more rarely. And with time he stopped counting the days, stopped waiting for letters, stopped remembering when he had last heard his own name. He simply lit the light every night. And then, one evening, when the fog was thicker than usual, he saw it. A light, far out at sea. A small point, barely visible, but it was there. He narrowed his eyes. A ship, he thought. But no. The light did not move like ships move. It did not sway on the waves. It did not change direction. It seemed to be looking back at him. He watched until dawn, and when the sun began to touch the horizon, the light disappeared, as if it had never been there. He convinced himself it was exhaustion. Maybe his eyes had betrayed him. Maybe a mirage. But the next night, it appeared again, and this time a little closer. The wind howled louder, the lighthouse creaked along its old stairs, and he stood on the viewing platform and watched. The light was not cold, not aggressive. It was warm, gentle, and it slowly, very slowly, came closer each night. On the third night he was already waiting, not with fear, with a strange feeling, as if someone was about to arrive, as if someone was searching for a way. And every time he lit the lighthouse, it seemed to him that the light at sea responded, as if an invisible dialogue had formed between them. A week passed. The light was close enough now that he could see it more clearly. It did not reflect on the water. It left no ripples. The sea around it remained calm, as if it did not belong to this world. That night he could not endure it any longer. He went down, took an old lantern and a boat. The water was quiet, almost still. The oars slid without sound, and the closer he rowed, the stronger he felt something in his chest. Not fear, a memory. The light hovered above the water. It had no form, no source, just a warm sphere pulsing, slowly. He stopped the boat. The silence grew deeper than ever. And then he heard a voice, not with his ears, inside. "You have waited a long time." He flinched. "Who are you?" he thought. The light grew a little brighter, and suddenly he saw images. A city, streets, a woman laughing, a small child running toward him. His past, his life before the island. He remembered how one day he chose solitude, after loss, after pain. He decided the sea was easier, that the light of the lighthouse was simpler than the light in human eyes, and he ran. The light before him seemed to breathe. "You are not lost," it sounded within him. "You have simply forgotten who you were." He felt something inside him break,
a wall he had been building for years. The light slowly moved closer and touched his chest, not painfully, warm, as if someone had placed a hand upon his heart. And in that moment he understood. It was not a threat, not a ghost, not a ship. It was a part of him, his own light, the one he had left behind in the past. He closed his eyes. Tears mixed with the salty air, and for the first time in many years, he spoke his name, out loud. The sea answered softly with a wave. When he opened his eyes, the light no longer hovered before him. It was inside, calm, warm, alive. He returned to the lighthouse before dawn, climbed to the top, and lit the light. But this time, it shone differently, brighter, not for the ships, for himself. Days passed, and one morning a boat appeared on the horizon, with people aboard. They were looking for a new keeper, because the old contract had ended. And for the first time in many years, he did not feel fear of change. He smiled, for he understood. The edge of the world exists only for those who are afraid to return. He climbed the stairs one last time, looked at the sea, and whispered, "Thank you for finding me." The lighthouse continued to stand on the island, to shine, but now there was one more light in the world, the light of a person who no longer runs from himself. And if one day in the darkness you see a warm glow that seems to be looking at you, perhaps it is not something from the sea. Perhaps it is a part of you that wants to return.
If this story warmed you tonight, you can support it with a like. It helps create more quiet stories like this for those who are searching for light in the darkness. Thank you for listening.